Jake Harris had been walking across the dead planet for 3 days. His boots left deep prints in the gray dust that covered everything. The sky above him was a pale yellow color, and 2 small suns hung low on the horizon. There was no wind. There was no sound. There was nothing alive as far as his eyes could see. He was a lieutenant commander in the Earth Survey Corps. His job was simple: land on new planets, check if humans could live there, report back to the ship waiting in space above. He had done this work for 12 years. He had seen frozen worlds and burning deserts. He had walked through forests of purple trees and swam in oceans of green water. But he had never seen a place as empty as this one. The planet was called Kepler 442b in the official records. The scientists said it might have been beautiful once. They found old riverbeds carved into the rock. They found the chemical signs of a thick atmosphere that had disappeared long ago. Something had happened here. Something had killed this world. But nobody knew what. Jake checked the small computer screen on his wrist. His shuttle was 2 kilometers to the east. His air supply would last another 6 hours. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. Then he looked up at the sky. The yellow color was changing. It was turning purple. Dark purple. The kind of purple that meant something very bad was coming. Jake had seen electromagnetic storms before. They were common on planets without a protective atmosphere. Charged particles from the suns would build up in the thin air and then release all at once. The energy was enough to kill a person in seconds. It was enough to fry every piece of technology within 100 kilometers. He started to run. The storm moved faster than he expected. Within minutes, the entire sky was a swirling mass of purple and black clouds. Lightning bolts of pure energy cracked across the horizon. The ground began to shake beneath his feet. His helmet display flickered and showed only static. Jake knew he would not make it to the shuttle. The storm would catch him in the open. He would die on this empty planet, and his body would turn to dust like everything else here. Then he saw the cave. It was just a dark hole in the side of a cliff. He had walked past 100 formations like it in the past 3 days. But this one was different. This one was big enough to fit inside. This one might save his life. He changed direction and ran toward it. A bolt of energy struck the ground 5 meters behind him. The impact threw him forward onto his hands and knees. He could feel the heat through his suit. He could smell something burning. Jake got up and kept running. His lungs were screaming. His legs were shaking. But he did not stop. He reached the cliff and dove into the darkness, just as another bolt hit the spot where he had been standing. The cave swallowed him whole. He rolled down a steep slope, his body bouncing off rocks and hard ground. He tried to grab onto something, but there was nothing to hold. He fell for what felt like forever. Then he hit the bottom with a painful crash. For a long moment, Jake just lay there. His whole body hurt. His suit was making warning sounds. But he was alive. The storm was far above him now, just a distant rumble of thunder. He sat up slowly and turned on his emergency lights. The cave was bigger than he had thought. The ceiling was at least 20 meters high. The walls were smooth, almost too smooth to be natural. The floor was covered with a fine layer of dust that had not been disturbed in a very long time. Jake checked his equipment. His communication array was completely dead. The electromagnetic pulse from the storm had destroyed it. His distress beacon showed nothing but interference. His connection to the ship in orbit was gone. He was alone. He was alone on an alien world, in a cave, with no way to call for help. His only option was to wait for the storm to pass and then try to make it back to the shuttle. If the shuttle still worked, if the storm had not destroyed it. Jake found a flat section of wall and sat down against it. He needed to conserve his suit's power. He needed to save his oxygen. He needed to stay calm and think clearly, but it was hard to stay calm in the dark. The sounds of the storm faded away over the next hour. The shaking stopped. The rumbling died down to nothing. Soon there was only silence. Complete, absolute silence. The kind of silence that made Jake feel like he was the last person in the universe. He closed his eyes and tried to rest. He thought about his family back on Earth. His mother who worried about him every time he left on a mission. His younger brother who wanted to join the survey corps too. His friends who were probably drinking beer in some bar right now, laughing and telling stories. Would they miss him if he died here? Would anyone remember that he had existed at all? Stop it, Jake told himself. You are not going to die. You just need to wait for the storm to end. You just need to get back to the shuttle. You just need to survive. He opened his eyes and stared into the darkness beyond his lights. That was when he heard it. A sound. A soft sound. Like a whisper carried on a wind that did not exist. Jake held his breath. He listened. There was nothing. Just the beating of his own heart. Then it came again. Clearer this time. Words that he could almost understand. You're not alone. Jake jumped to his feet. His hand moved to the weapon at his hip. His light swung wildly as he looked in every direction. Who's there? He shouted. His voice echoed off the cave walls and disappeared into the black. Emptiness ahead. There was no answer. Jake took a step forward. Then another. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His hands were shaking. Show yourself. He called out. I have a weapon. Still nothing. The silence pressed against him like a physical weight. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe the stress was making him hear things. Maybe his brain was playing tricks on him because he was scared and alone. But then a light appeared in the darkness ahead. It was not like his emergency lights. It was soft and blue and seemed to come from inside something rather than shining on something. It grew brighter as he watched. It moved closer, and then Jake saw what was making the light. It was not human. It was tall, at least 2 meters. Its body was thin and covered in pale skin that glowed with that strange blue light. It had no eyes that Jake could see. Where eyes should have been, there were thin things that looked like feathers or plants, waving slowly in air that was perfectly still. The creature had no legs. Its lower body was a mass of thin tendrils that carried it forward without any sound at all. It moved like it was floating. It moved like a ghost. Jake raised his weapon and pointed it at the thing. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely aim. Stay back, he shouted. I will shoot. The creature stopped. Its feather-like sensors waved in his direction. And then the voice came again. Not from the creature's body. Not from anywhere Jake could identify. It came from inside his own mind, clear as a bell. Do not be afraid, human. I have waited a very long time for someone like you. I have a story to tell. And you need to hear it. Because the survival of your entire species depends on what you do next. Jake did not lower his weapon. He did not move at all. He just stood there in the darkness of an alien cave, staring at a creature that should not exist, listening to words that made no sense. But somewhere deep inside him, he knew that his life had just changed forever. Jake kept his weapon pointed at the creature. His finger was on the trigger. One wrong move and he would fire. He was scared, but he was also trained for situations like this. Well, not exactly like this. Nothing in his training had prepared him for meeting an alien that could speak inside his mind. How are you doing that? Jake asked. His voice was rough. How are you talking in my head? The creature moved closer. Its body glowed brighter. The feather-like things on its face waved gently. My species communicates through thought, the voice said in his mind. We learned long ago that sounds are slow and often misunderstood. Thought is pure. Thought is truth. When I speak to your mind, you understand exactly what I mean. Jake did not lower his weapon. What are you? Where did you come from? My name is difficult for your kind to say. The closest sound in your language would be Vera. I am the last of my people. We called ourselves the Calorians. This was our world once. Before the fire came from the sky. Before the machines took everything away. Jake looked around the cave. In the blue light from Vera's body, he could see more details now. The walls were not natural stone. They had been carved. There were patterns in them. Symbols that might have been writing. This was not just a cave. It was a building. A structure. Something made by intelligent hands a very long time ago. Your world, Jake said slowly. This planet. You lived here? We lived on 3 planets in this system, Vera replied. Billions of us. We had cities that touched the clouds. Ships that traveled between stars. We thought we were safe. We thought we were powerful. We were wrong. The creature moved to the side, and Jake saw a passage leading deeper into the cave. Lights came on along the walls, soft blue lights like the glow from Vera's skin. The passage went down into the heart of the planet. Come with me, Vera said. I will show you what we were, and I will show you what destroyed us. You need to see. You need to understand. Jake did not move. Why should I trust you? I don't know what you are. I don't know what you want. Vera's sensors turned toward him. Something like sadness filled Jake's mind. It was not his sadness. It was coming from the creature. He could feel it like a cold wave washing over him. You are hurt, Vera said. The storm. It carried radiation that has damaged your body. Your organs are already starting to fail. In 12 hours, maybe less, you will die. I can help you. I can heal you. But you need to come with me. Jake checked his suit's medical screen. His heart dropped. Vera was right. His kidney function was at 60% and falling. His liver showed signs of severe damage. The radiation from the storm had done more harm than he realized. He had been dying slowly ever since he entered the cave. How do you know this? Jake asked. I can see inside you. Your body is like glass to me. I can see the damage. I can also fix it. But we need to go deeper. My medical equipment is below. Jake faced a choice. He could stay here with his weapon raised and die slowly from radiation poisoning. Or he could follow an alien creature into the unknown and maybe live. It was not a hard choice when he thought about it that way. He lowered his weapon but kept it in his hand. Lead the way. Vera turned and floated down the passage. Jake followed. The lights on the walls grew brighter as they walked. He saw more symbols carved into the stone. He saw pictures that showed things he could not understand. Strange shapes. Strange machines. Things that might have been other creatures. They walked for a long time. The passage went down and down. The air grew warmer. Jake could feel a humming in the ground beneath his feet, like there was something powerful running far below. How long have you been here? Jake asked. 47,000 of your years, Vera replied. Jake almost stopped walking. That's impossible. Nothing lives that long. Your species does not. Mine can. Our bodies are different. We can slow our systems down to almost nothing and wait for centuries at a time. I have spent most of the last 47,000 years in a sleep state. But I always kept part of my mind awake, watching, listening, waiting for someone to come. Waiting for what? The passage opened into a larger chamber. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The chamber was huge. It was the size of a football stadium, and it was full of machines. Weapons that were bigger than houses. Ships that were folded into shapes that should not be possible. Computers that covered entire walls with screens showing data that Jake could not read. In the center of the room was a medical bed. It looked almost human, but with technology that was clearly far beyond anything Earth had ever made. "Lie down," Vera said. "The healing will take several hours. While your body repairs, I will tell you the story of my people. And I will explain why I've been waiting for you." Jake walked to the bed. He looked at Vera. The creature's sensors were fixed on him. There was no threat in its stance. Only patience. Only hope. He lay down on the bed. Soft lights began to move over his body. He felt warmth spreading through him. The pain in his chest that he had not even noticed started to fade. Long ago, Vera began, the galaxy was full of life. Hundreds of species rose from their home worlds and reached for the stars. They built empires. They made alliances. They created wonders that your kind cannot imagine. My people were among them. We were proud. We were strong. We thought we understood the universe. Images began to appear in Jake's mind. Not his own memories. Vera's memories. He saw beautiful cities with towers of crystal and light. He saw ships dancing between planets. He saw creatures of all shapes and sizes working together, building, creating, living. Then the harvesters came. The images changed. The beautiful cities were burning. The crystal towers were falling. The ships were being torn apart by things that looked like massive metal insects. "The harvesters are not alive," Vera continued. "They are machines. They were built by a species that died millions of years ago. We do not know who made them or why. We only know what they do. They consume. They take everything useful from a planet and leave nothing behind. Metal, water, organic matter, energy. They take it all." Jake saw worlds being stripped down to bare rock. He saw billions of creatures dying. He saw the harvesters growing larger with every world they destroyed, using the stolen resources to build more of themselves. "My people fought them," Vera said. "We were the first to truly resist. We developed weapons that could destroy their ships. We created shields that could protect our worlds. We held them back for 200 years. But there were always more of them. They did not get tired. They did not give up. They did not care how many they lost." The images showed Kalurians fighting, dying, retreating, world after world falling to the machine swarm. In the end, we had only this planet left. We hid underground. We hoped they would move on and forget about us. And they did. They left this system and went looking for easier targets. But they took everything else first. They burned our atmosphere. They poisoned our water. They killed every living thing on the surface. Jake felt tears on his face. He was crying. Not his own tears. He was crying for a species he had never known. For a tragedy that happened thousands of years before humans existed. "My people died slowly after that," Vera said. "Our technology kept us alive for a time, but we had no hope. One by one, we faded away. I am the last. I have kept myself alive for one reason only." "What reason?" Jake asked. "To warn others. To share what we learned. To give someone else the chance we never had." Vera moved closer to the bed. "The harvesters are still out there, Jake. They are still consuming. Still growing. And according to my calculations, they will reach your home system in approximately 3 of your generations. They will come for Earth. They will come for humanity." Jake's blood went cold. 3 generations. That meant his brother's grandchildren might be the ones who faced these monsters. His family. His species. Everything he had ever loved. Can they be stopped? Jake asked. "Yes," Vera said. "With the right weapons. With the right knowledge. With enough time to prepare. Everything you need is here." Everything my people learned in 200 years of war. I had been saving it for someone worthy. Someone who could take it back to their people and use it to survive. Jake sat up on the bed. The healing process was working. He could feel his strength returning. His organs were repairing themselves. Why me? He asked. Why my species? There must be others out there. Others who are stronger. More advanced. Vera was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, and her voice in Jake's mind was filled with something that felt like wonder. I have been listening to your species for centuries. Your radio signals reach out into space. I have heard your music and your stories. I have watched your wars and your disasters. Your people are violent. You fight each other over things that do not matter. You make terrible mistakes. Jake nodded. He could not argue with that. But I have also seen something else, Vera continued. I have seen humans run into burning buildings to save strangers. I have seen your soldiers give their lives for people they never met. I have seen your scientists work until they drop to cure diseases. I have seen your artists create beauty from pain. I have seen your people refuse to give up when everything was lost. The alien sensors waved gently. Your species does not know how to surrender, Jake. That is why I chose you. That is why I have been waiting. Because the harvesters have destroyed hundreds of civilizations. But they have never faced a species like yours. The storm raged above the surface for 3 more days. Jake did not mind. Every hour he spent in the underground complex was an hour of learning. Vera showed him things that changed everything he thought. He knew about the universe. They walked through chambers filled with weapons. Some were small enough to fit in his hand. Others were the size of buildings. Vera explained each one in simple terms that Jake could understand. This is a particle cannon, she said, pointing to a long tube covered in strange symbols. It fires a beam of energy that can cut through the hull of a harvester ship. Your scientists will need years to understand how it works. But they will learn. Humans are good at learning. Jake touched the weapon. It was cold and smooth. It did not look like much. But according to Vera, it could destroy a warship in seconds. They moved to another chamber. This one was filled with ships. They looked strange to Jake's eyes. They had no wings. No obvious engines. They were shaped like teardrops, smooth and perfect. Our fastest ships, Vera said. They can travel between stars in days rather than months. The technology is complex, but the basic idea is simple. They bend space around them and ride the fold like a wave. Jake walked around one of the ships. It was beautiful in a way he could not explain. Like something from a dream. Why didn't your people use these to run away? He asked. You could have gone to another galaxy. Somewhere the harvesters would never find you. Vera was quiet for a moment. Her sensors drooped in that way Jake now understood meant sadness. Some wanted to. Many argued for it. But where would we go? The harvesters are everywhere in this galaxy. We would have spent forever running and never found peace. And there was something else. Something that made my people choose to stay and fight. What? Pride, Vera said. We did not want to be the species that ran away. We wanted to be the species that stood up. Even if we lost. Even if we died. We wanted the universe to know that the Calorians fought back. Jake nodded. He understood that feeling. It was the same thing that made humans charge into battles they could not win. The same thing that made people stand up to tyrants, even when they had no chance of victory. It was not logical. It was not smart. But it was deeply, completely human. They spent hours in the archive chamber. This was the most important room in the entire complex. The walls were covered with screens showing information that Jake could not read. But Vera could translate all of it directly into his mind. He learned about the history of the galaxy, about the dozens of species that had risen and fallen over millions of years. Some had been peaceful. Some had been warlike. Some had built empires that lasted for centuries. All of them had eventually faced the harvesters. All of them had lost. He learned about the harvesters themselves. They were not like any machine humans had ever built. They could think. They could plan. They could learn from their mistakes. But they had no feelings, no mercy, no concept of anything except consumption and growth. They were built to gather resources, Vera explained. Their original creators needed materials to build something. We do not know what. The creators died long ago, but the harvesters continued their mission. They cannot stop. They do not know how to stop. They will keep consuming until there is nothing left in the universe. Jake felt sick. Is there no way to talk to them? To negotiate? Many have tried. The harvesters do not understand negotiation. They understand only efficiency. You are either useful resources or you are obstacles. There is no middle ground. They moved to another section of the archives. This one showed star maps. Jake recognized some of the constellations. He saw where Earth was located in the galaxy, a small yellow dot in the outer arm of the spiral. Here, Vera said, highlighting a region of space about 50 light-years from Earth. This is where the harvesters are currently concentrated. They are consuming a cluster of systems that was once home to 3 different species. None of them survived. The map showed the harvester movements over time. They spread out like a disease, touching one system after another, leaving nothing behind except empty rocks. The path of expansion will bring them to your home in 70 to 90 years, Vera continued. It is not certain. They sometimes change direction based on the resources they detect. But the probability is high. Your people must be ready. Jake stared at the map. His home, his planet, everyone he had ever known. They were all in the path of something that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. What do we need to do to prepare? He asked. Vera's sensors lifted. Many things. First, your species must unite. You cannot fight the harvesters while fighting each other. The wars between your nations must end. The conflicts between your colonies must be resolved. You need every human working together. Jake thought about Earth, about the political divisions, the wars that never seemed to end, the hatred between groups who had been enemies for centuries. Could humanity really come together, even to face extinction? What else? He asked. You must build a fleet, not the small ships your species uses now. Real warships. Hundreds of them. Thousands if possible. The weapons in this complex will help, but you need ships to carry them. Vera moved to another screen. It showed designs for vessels that were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Massive dreadnoughts with enough firepower to crack planets. Your species has the raw materials. You have the population. You have the intelligence. What you lack is time. 70 years is not long to prepare for a war of extinction. We've done impossible things before, Jake said. We went from flying basic airplanes to landing on the moon in 60 years. We can do this. Vera's sensors waved in a way that Jake thought might be agreement. Yes, that is what makes your species special. You move fast. You adapt. You do not wait for permission to change. Many older species became stuck in their ways. They could not think new thoughts or try new methods. Humans do not have this problem. You are always changing, always growing, always reaching for something more. They continued through the complex. Jake saw laboratories filled with equipment that could cure diseases humans did not even know existed. He saw communication systems that could send messages across the galaxy in seconds. He saw energy generators that could power entire cities from something the size of a suitcase. Every room held wonders. Every chamber contained knowledge that would change human civilization forever. But Vera also showed him something else. Something darker. In a small room at the very bottom of the complex, there were records of the final days of the Calorian people. Not just data. Actual recordings. Images and sounds of real Calorians as their civilization died. Jake saw a family huddled in a shelter as explosions shook the walls. He saw soldiers making their last stand against an endless wave of metal monsters. He saw scientists working desperately to finish one more weapon, one more defense, even as the harvesters broke through the doors behind them. And he saw children. Young Calorians who would never grow up, who would never see another sunrise, who would die in the dark because the universe had sent machines to consume their world. Jake had to look away. The pain was too much. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. His voice was rough with emotion. "Because you need to understand what will happen if you fail," Vera said. "This is what the harvesters leave behind. Nothing. No survivors. No monuments. No memory. They do not just kill a species. They erase it, as if it never existed at all." Jake forced himself to look back at the screens. The images had changed. Now, they showed the surface of the planet as it looked before the harvesters came. Green forests, blue oceans, cities full of light and life. Everything that had been taken away. "My people are gone," Vera said. "I cannot bring them back. But I can help make sure your people do not share our fate. That is why I saved all of this. That is why I'd have been waiting. Take this knowledge, Jake. Use it. Save your species. And when the harvesters come, make them pay for every world they have ever destroyed." Jake stood in that small room for a long time. He thought about his mother, his brother, his friends, the billions of humans going about their daily lives, not knowing that something terrible was coming. They deserved a chance. "How do I take all of this back?" Jake asked finally. "I have a small shuttle. It can't carry a fraction of what's here." Vera moved toward a table in the corner. On it was a small crystal, about the size of Jake's fist. It glowed with a soft inner light. "Everything is stored in this," Vera said. "The weapons designs, the ship plans, the archives, the star maps, all of it compressed into a format that your computers can read. Take this crystal, and you take 40,000 years of Calorian knowledge with you." Jake picked up the crystal. It was warm in his hands. It felt alive somehow, like it was aware of him. "There is one more thing," Vera said. "I cannot stay here any longer. My body is failing. My time is almost done. But my mind can be preserved. There is a small device that can hold my consciousness. If you take it with you, I can continue to advise your people. I can help you understand the technology. I can guide you when you face the harvesters." Jake looked at the alien creature who had saved his life, who had shown him wonders beyond imagination, who was offering her last breath to help a species she had never met. "Of course," he said. "I would be honored to carry you with me." There. The storm finally ended on the morning of the fourth day. Jake climbed back up through the passage and emerged onto the surface of the dead planet. The sky was yellow again. The two small suns hung low on the horizon. Everything looked the same as before, but Jake was different. He carried the crystal in a special case attached to his belt. He carried Vera's consciousness in a small sphere that hung next to it. And he carried the weight of knowing what was coming for humanity. His shuttle was exactly where he had left it. The electromagnetic pulse from the storm had damaged some systems, but not all of them. It took Jake 3 hours to repair enough to get airborne. When the engines finally came to life, he felt relief wash over him. "Horizon, this is Lieutenant Commander Harris. Do you read me?" Static. Then a voice broke through. Captain Diane Monroe. She sounded worried and angry at the same time. Harris, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for 3 days. We were about to send a rescue team. Captain, I'm fine. Better than fine. I'm on my way back now. But I need you to call a meeting of all senior staff. I have something to show everyone. Something important. How important? Jake looked at the crystal in his hand. He thought about the images Vera had shown him. The burning cities. The dying worlds. The machines that never stopped. Important enough to change everything, Captain. Trust me on this. The flight back to the horizon took 2 hours. Jake spent most of it preparing what he would say. How do you tell people that everything they know is about to change? How do you explain that the universe is full of wonders, but also full of horrors? How do you convince them that they need to prepare for a war that might not come for 70 years? When he docked with the ship, Captain Monroe was waiting for him in the landing bay. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been in the Survey Corps longer than Jake had been alive. Nothing surprised her anymore, until now. What is that? She asked, pointing at the sphere hanging from Jake's belt. This is Vera, Jake said. She's an alien. The last survivor of a species that lived on this planet 47,000 years ago. She needs to talk to everyone. Captain Monroe stared at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded once. Meeting room. 15 minutes. Don't be late. The meeting room was small. Just a table and chairs and screens on the walls. But everyone important was there. Captain Monroe. The ship's science officer, Lieutenant Craig Evans. The head of security, Commander Beth Palmer. The chief engineer, Sam Wong. They all looked at Jake like he had lost his mind. Jake placed the sphere on the table. He connected it to the ship's communication system. And then Vera spoke. She spoke for 2 hours. She showed them the same images she had shown Jake. The history of the Colorians. The rise and fall of their civilization. The horror of the harvesters. The weapons and knowledge she had saved. When she finished, the room was silent. Craig Evans spoke first. He was a young man with thick glasses and a brilliant mind. The technology in that crystal. If what you're saying is true, it would advance human science by centuries. Maybe more. It's true, Vera said. But the technology is not a gift. It is a tool. A tool to help you survive what is coming. Beth Palmer leaned forward. She was a soldier. She understood war. You said the harvesters will reach Earth in 70 years. That's not much time. It is enough if you start now, Vera replied. If you wait, if you argue, if you fight among yourselves, it will not be enough. The choice is yours. Captain Monroe had been quiet through the whole presentation. Now, she spoke. We need to get this information to Earth, to the government, to the military, to everyone. That is the plan, Jake said. But there's something else we need to think about. Something Vera warned me about. He looked around the room at his colleagues, his friends, people he had served with for years. This knowledge will change humanity, he said. Not just our technology, our society, our politics, everything. Some people will use it wisely. Others will use it for power. There will be new conflicts, new wars, maybe worse than anything we've seen before. You think we should keep it secret? Beth asked. No, we can't. Humanity needs time to prepare for the harvesters. We can't do that without this technology. But we need to be careful about how we share it. We need to make sure it doesn't tear us apart before the real enemy even arrives. The discussion went on for hours. They argued about who should know, about how to release the information, about what to do with Vera and the crystal. In the end, they decided to bring everything back to Earth, and let the government make the final decisions. But before they left orbit, Jake went back to the surface one more time. He stood outside the cave entrance where his life had changed. He looked up at the yellow sky and the two small suns. "Vera," he said, "what happens to you after this? When we get back to Earth?" The sphere at his belt hummed softly. "I do not know. I've been alone for so long. The idea of being surrounded by billions of people is strange to me. But it is also wonderful to see life again, to hear voices again, to know that my people's sacrifice was not for nothing." "You'll be a hero," Jake said, "when people understand what you've done, what you've given up to help us." "I do not want to be a hero. I just want to be useful. I want to help your species survive. That is enough for me." Jake smiled. In the short time he had known Vera, he had come to think of her as a friend. Maybe the strangest friend he would ever have, but a friend all the same. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my life, for trusting me, for everything." "Thank you," Vera replied, "for listening, for believing, for being the kind of person I hoped would come." The trip back to Earth took 3 months. The Horizon was not a fast ship. It was built for surveying, not racing. But it gave Jake time to think, time to prepare, time to learn more from Vera about what was coming. He learned that the harvesters were not invincible. They could be destroyed. They could be beaten. The Kalurians had proven that. They had fought for 200 years and won many battles. If they had more allies, more resources, more time, they might have won the war. Humanity would have all of those things. Humanity would have allies from a dozen other species that were still fighting the harvesters in distant parts of the galaxy. Humanity would have resources from countless worlds that had never been touched by the machines. And humanity would have time. 70 years to prepare. 70 years to build. 70 years to become strong enough to face the storm. When the Horizon finally reached Earth, Jake looked at his home planet through the viewport. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling over everything. It was beautiful, the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Vera," he said, "look at this." The sphere hummed. Jake felt wonder flowing through his mind. Vera's wonder. She had seen images of Earth in the radio broadcasts she had monitored for centuries. But seeing it in person was different. "It is lovely," she said. "Worth fighting for. Worth dying for." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Jake said. "Let's hope we can win without too many people having to die." "Hope is good," Vera said. "But preparation is better. Come, it is time to begin." The shuttle descended toward Earth, toward meetings with presidents and generals, toward arguments with scientists and politicians, toward the beginning of a new chapter in human history. Jake did not know what would happen next. He did not know if humanity would unite or tear itself apart. He did not know if they would be ready when the Veil and the harvesters came, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity would fight. They might lose. They might win. They might sacrifice everything they had. But they would not surrender. They would not run. They would stand up and face whatever came, because that was what humans did. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Jake heard Vera's voice, soft, proud, full of, "That is why I chose you." 50 years had passed since Jake Harris walked out of that cave. The universe had changed. Humanity had changed. Everything was different now. Admiral Catherine Harris stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Endurance. She was Jake's daughter. She had his eyes and his stubborn chin. She had grown up hearing stories about the alien in the cave, about the warning that saved humanity, about the knowledge that transformed their civilization. Now, she was about to put that knowledge to the test. "Admiral," said her communications officer, Long-range sensors have detected a Harvester scout ship entering the outer system. It will reach weapons range in approximately 30 minutes. Catherine nodded. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was calm. Signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations. This is what we've been preparing for. The Terran defense fleet spread out around her. 200 ships. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Each one was built with technology that combined human creativity and Kalurian knowledge. Each one carried weapons that could punch through Harvester armor like paper. 50 years ago, this fleet did not exist. 50 years ago, humanity was divided into 100 different nations and colonies, all fighting over scraps. 50 years ago, they had no idea what was coming. Everything changed when Jake Harris came home. The governments of Earth had not believed him at first. They thought it was a trick, a lie, a scheme to gain power. But Vera spoke to them directly, showing them the images of destruction, the data on the harvesters, the proof that could not be denied. Within a year, the nations of Earth signed the United Terran Treaty. They put aside their ancient hatreds and formed a single government. It was not easy. There were protests and rebellions and assassination attempts. But every time someone tried to break the alliance, they were reminded of what was coming. Every time someone argued for going back to the old ways, they were shown the images of dead Kalurian children. Humanity came together, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. The next 20 years were spent building. Factories rose on every continent. Shipyards circled Earth and Mars and the outer moons. Scientists worked around the clock to understand the Kalurian technology and improve it. Engineers designed ships that were faster and stronger than anything the galaxy had seen. They also reached out to other species. The Kalurians were not the only ones fighting the harvesters. There were others. A few scattered survivors hiding in distant systems. A handful of younger species who had not yet been consumed. They found each other. They shared knowledge. They formed alliances. By the time the Harvester scout ship arrived, humanity was not alone. Admiral, the communications officer said, "The scout ship is scanning us. It's transmitting data back to the main Harvester fleet." Catherine smiled. Let them scan. Let them see what humanity had built. Let them report back to their masters that this species was not like the others. All ships, she said, weapons free. Fire at will. The Terran Defense Fleet opened fire as one. Particle cannons. Plasma torpedoes. Gravity bombs. Technologies that human scientists had studied and improved for 50 years. The Harvester scout ship never stood a chance. It lasted approximately 4 minutes before it was reduced to scattered atoms on Earth. In a specially designed laboratory, Vera watched through sensors connected to orbital satellites. Her consciousness had been transferred from the small sphere into a larger system. She was part of humanity now. Their advisor. Their guide. Their friend. She had watched them grow. She had seen them make mistakes and learn from them. She had watched their children become soldiers and their scientists become heroes. And she had seen them transform from a divided species into a united force. "It is done," she said to the council members gathered around her. "The scout ship is destroyed. But this is only the beginning. The main Harvester fleet will receive the data. They will know that humanity is a threat. They will redirect their forces here." President Marcus Cole nodded. He was an old man now, one of the first leaders to sign the United Terran Treaty. "How long do we have?" "Based on my calculations, the main fleet will arrive in approximately 7 years. They will bring everything they have. Thousands of ships. Millions of harvesting units. They will not underestimate you again." "Good," said General Linda Price, the commander of all Terran military forces. "We'll be ready for them." The next 7 years were the hardest of all. Humanity worked like never before. They built more ships. They trained more soldiers. They developed new weapons and new tactics. They prepared for a war that would decide the fate of their species. And through it all, Vera was there, teaching, guiding, warning. She had lived through one extinction event. She was determined not to live through another. Jake Harris was 93 years old when the main Harvester fleet arrived. Kalurian life extension technology had kept him alive, but he was tired. He had spent 50 years fighting for this moment. 50 years convincing, arguing, pushing, demanding. He had sacrificed everything. His career, his marriage, his health. All for this day. He stood before the United Terran Council for one final address. 50 years ago, he said, his voice still strong despite his age, I hid in a cave on a dead world to escape a storm. I thought I was alone. I thought humanity was alone in the universe. I was wrong on both counts. He looked at the representatives from every human world, every faction, every belief system, united for the first time in history. We found an ally in the darkness. We found the weapons we needed to survive. But more importantly, we found something inside ourselves. Something the harvesters will never understand. He paused, letting the words sink in. We found each other. And that's why we're going to win. The battle that followed lasted 7 years. The harvesters threw everything they had at humanity. Wave after wave of metal monsters. Millions of units designed to consume and destroy. They expected the same result they had seen 1,000 times before. A brief resistance followed by total collapse. But humanity did not collapse. They fought in space and on land. They fought in the atmosphere and underground. They fought with weapons and with bare hands when the weapons ran out. Every time the harvesters pushed them back, they regrouped and pushed forward again. The harvesters did not understand. They had conquered species that were older and stronger. They had crushed civilizations that were more advanced. They had never faced anything like these small, stubborn creatures who refused to die. Captured humans would destroy themselves rather than give up information. Damaged ships would ram into harvester vessels on suicide runs. Civilian transports would turn around and join the fight when they could have fled to safety. It made no sense. It was not efficient. It was not logical. But it was human. In the 5th year of the war, Admiral Catherine Harris led a strike force deep into harvested territory. Her mission was simple. Find the central intelligence that controlled all harvester operations. Destroy it. The journey took 6 months. They lost half their ships along the way. But they reached the harvester home system. And there, orbiting a dead star, they found what they were looking for. A massive structure. Bigger than planets. The heart of the harvester swarm. The brain that controlled billions of harvesting units across the galaxy. Catherine looked at it through her viewport. It was ugly, cold, mechanical. There was nothing living about it. Nothing beautiful. Just pure, efficient destruction. All ships, she said, target the core. Everything we have. On my mark. The remnants of her strike force formed up around her. 23 ships out of the 60 that had started the mission. Every one of them ready to die if necessary. Mark, they fired together. Weapons that humanity had spent 50 years perfecting. Technologies that combined the best of human innovation and Kalurian wisdom. A concentrated burst of destruction that nothing could survive. The central intelligence tried to adapt. It had survived for millions of years by learning and changing. But there was nothing to learn from this. Nothing to change. The humans were not trying to damage it or slow it down. They were trying to kill it, and they succeeded. The massive structure exploded. A wave of destruction spread outward, disrupting every harvester unit in the galaxy. Ships stopped moving. Harvesters stopped consuming. The great machine swarm that had terrorized the universe for millions of years simply stopped. Humanity had won. Vera did not live to see the final victory. Her matrix had finally degraded beyond repair 6 months before the end. Her consciousness had faded into silence after tens of thousands of years of watching and waiting and hoping. Her last words were broadcast to every human world, to every ship in the fleet, to every person who had fought for survival. "You are never alone," she said. The universe was always full of life, full of hope, full of species who looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. Most of them are gone now, but you're still here. Remember them, honor them, and never stop reaching for the next star. Centuries later, when humanity had spread across 1,000 worlds and helped rebuild a dozen other civilizations that the harvesters had nearly destroyed, scholars would still debate what had made them different. What had allowed one species to succeed where so many others had failed? The answer was simple. Humanity had never stopped being afraid. They had never stopped being flawed. They had never stopped fighting each other over things that did